Hey everybody, Jeremy here. Today we're going to do an install of TuxedoOS version 1. And this was previously only available if you bought a computer from Tuxedo Computers. So I wanted to check this out, especially since this is a KDE based distribution, whereas most other things these days are GNOME based. And just to see how this thing is going to run. And that's why I'm trying to multitask a little bit during the process of opening up this video. So let's go ahead and jump over to the console and we'll see what we get. Okay, so boot from DVD. We've got the wired LAN and Tuxedo hardware needed option. And we've got the Web FAI desktop installation, which is a fully automated installation. We could do UEFI firmware settings, installed BIOS system on. So we're just going to do the second option here, boot from DVD for VM TuxedoOS 1. And we'll see what we end up with. While we're waiting on that, let's Tuxedo Computers. So this company is based out of Europe. And see if we can figure out a way to get into an English version right here. That looks better. But my understanding is that they ship around the world. Now, whether you want to choose this option over System 76, which is built here in the US, that's completely up to you, and I'm not going to try to steer you one way or the other since I don't own products from either company. And this is a perfect time to mention that this is not a sponsored video. But it's good to know what's out there, and, competition is good in the Linux segment as well as elsewhere. So we should be hitting here pretty quick since we've got a cursor now. We should be hitting the first part of the installer, and we'll push through this and see what we end up with. Powered by KDE. Nice logo on the splash screen. Alright, it defaults to German. Let's go to American English. And it's got the correct time zone. Language is good. And we start installing. And we'll have to wait here for a minute and see what happens next. While that installer is going, I'm just curious. Okay. That is just our running program. The installer program. And this is still partially in German. So far, so good. Might be a little on the slow side, but that's all right. It's running on some older hardware, which realistically is not ideal for an OS like this. For lower end hardware, of course, I would recommend XFCE or LXQT, something along those lines. but we'll give this a try anyways and just see how it might compare to some of the other offerings that are on the market now. All right, I guess the trick is to step away from the computer for a moment, which, hey, that's advice that all of us should probably take a little bit more often. Okay, so we've landed on the desktop. We can peruse through and see what's in the menu. Uh, yep, it definitely looks like KDE. Let's take a look here. TuxedoOS kernel 5.15. And again, it's based on Ubuntu 22.04.1. And what's the default Firefox version we've got here? I'm guessing it's going to be 90 something, but maybe they'll surprise me with a version over 100. 105. Not bad. Not bad. I'm somewhat impressed. Okay, well, let's see. Notifications, Tuxedo Control Center. That'll be interesting to look at. Updates, audio volume, most recent device, networks, and hidden icons. Minimize all windows. So let's look at Tuxedo Control Center. Ooh. I suspect that most of this is meant more for their own equipment. But that's all right. Tools, Tuxedo Aquarius. Okay, it's something specific. Support and info. So some of this stuff is unique to their equipment. That's all right. Should get the standard Dolphin, which is all right. It's been a while since I've looked at a KDE based system. And this takes me back to the glory days when I was too poor to use anything other than Linux. We're going to install TuxedoOS on a non-Tuxedo device. Software like Tomte or Tuxedo Control Center will not work or will work only limited. Okay. That's fine. Will you do a crypto installation and erase all data on the disk? Whole disk will be used. If you do not want that, hit no. Yes. Only disks that do not contain NTFS are displayed. We'll do SDA. Okay. And we'll see how this install goes. It is encrypting the virtual hard disk, so that's something to keep in mind. Okay, we are done with the install and we're going to go ahead and get a reboot done. And we are in fact booting from the virtual hard drive. It's a nice looking login screen. And we've reached the desktop. So let's go ahead and see about poking around this a little bit. Take a look at the terminal, which is called console. Okay, we get this stupid fish animation, which all I want is a new tab I can use. See what updates are available. And it's pointing at mirrors.tuxedocomputers.com. And looks like they've got a copy of the Ubuntu Jammy repository. But that's 98% done. And we'll see how many packages exactly we've got to update here. Oh, that's not bad at all. Go ahead and do the upgrade and get those packages updated. And we can continue to poke around here and see what we've got. So, look at settings first, system settings. All right, so we've got the behemoth that is the KDE Plasma settings panel or system settings, and there are like 1,001 different settings in here. It's better, which is sort of a blessing and a curse at the same time, I suppose. After using non-KDE Plasma desktops for a number of years, this is, in comparison, it feels a little bit overwhelming, the sheer number of options you've got here. So about this system, Plasma version 5.24.6, KDE Frameworks 5.92, Qt version 5.15.3, and kernel 5.15 with Tuxedo patches. It is running X11, which means that we should be able to use remote desktop applications or remote support applications like Splashtop to control this. So let's go ahead and close that. We'll poke around a little bit more. Just out of curiosity, the super key is in fact mapped for all those people living with a Windows keyboard. That would be the Windows key. So the Tuxedo Control Center is going to be of limited use because we're not running Tuxedo hardware, but it does in fact launch. The Web FAI creator is the easiest way to prepare a USB pen drive for Tuxedo's own fully automated install. So that's interesting. Of course, there's a system monitor. Pretty standard fare here. See the applications that are running, history, processes. For out of curiosity, we'll jump back into terminal. And we can get into our Proxmox server, the other Proxmox server, and run htop on that. Okay, so we are going to run a Linus security scan just to sort of get a baseline where we're at out of the box, so to speak. First, we need to install Git. All right, and then we can do a git clone. For Linus. Let's see. It's been a minute since I've run this. And enter to continue. Unknown OS, which I'm not surprised by. And I suspect we're probably going to get a number of suggestions that will have us lock down SSH and install a rootkit tool and different things of that nature. Let's go ahead and wait this out while we find out what we've got to work with. Okay, so our baseline is a 65, which isn't the worst I've seen. I've seen a few that were below 60. Let's jump back up here and see what it suggests here. IP tables is loaded, but no rules active. So the firewall, that's what I expect straight off from the ISO image. Release is more than 4 months old. Check to see if there's an update available. Grub password, hardening system services. Disable core dump, PAM configurations, password hashing rounds, PAM modules for password strength, minimum password age, maximum password age, all this fun stuff. DNS configuration. Consider a tool to automatically apply upgrades. Harden the system by installing at least one malware scanner. So then we can look for details by test ID. Linus show details test ID. So we'll come back up here and find a test ID. We'll say boot -5122. Regardless, we've got a 65 as a starting point. Just out of curiosity. Okay, so that's part of the reason that we got a 65 is because the SSH daemon is not installed, which means no SSH server. You can't connect to this VM via SSH. You can connect from this machine to others, but not from others to this machine. Probably not a deal breaker for a lot of desktop Linux users, but if you are really into your network and system administration stuff, then you will want SSHD running. And that, of course, is going to bump down your score from the 65 to probably the 60 that I'd referred to earlier. The Software Center. This is a little different since this is a KDE-based system. But it operates in much the same way that the store on any other Linux distro or Mac OS or Windows for that matter would operate. The great part about this is you don't have to be signed into some service where a company is going to monitor and track everything that you install. That's a definite advantage here. And it's even got LVFS for Linux Vendor Firmware Service, which is not a bad thing. Yeah, first thoughts, in a VM, doesn't feel quite as snappy as some of the other distributions I've used necessarily, but it's not awful. And it's got VirtualBox pre-installed, so that's a nice thing. Just as an attempt to run through some of these things real quick, it's got some standard KDE games installed, sort of the KDE versions of different utilities, plus LibreOffice Draw and graphics. Firefox and Thunderbird are installed by default. You got VLC Player and Eliza, or whatever you want to pronounce that. Got the rest of the LibreOffice apps in here, along with Ocular, which is a document viewer. KDE Math under Sciences and Math, and you've got your settings and your system, and then you start installing and customizing this to your heart's content. Now, impressions compared to something like Pop!OS. Well, frankly, Pop!OS is a little more evolved, a little more customized, although there are some customizations in TuxedoOS. And as a user in the US, it is far more likely that I'm going to purchase from System 76 than it is from Tuxedo Computers, which, although they ship throughout the world, I don't want to pay the extra shipping cost. So if I did buy a pre-built Linux computer, it would likely be from System 76. But on that note, I would consider testing TuxedoOS on a System 76 computer. That would be kind of an interesting experiment to see how well that would work, and whether some of the more laptop-specific controls would come alive. In a VM, I'm probably not likely to use this long-term. However, most of my VMs tend to be sort of server-based, the ones that I keep around for a while. I wanted to give this a try because this is, the last few days is the first time that TuxedoOS has been released beyond the computers that come from Tuxedo Computers. Just for the sake of argument, I'm curious about desktop wallpaper, just to see what we might have that does not have the Tuxedo Computers logo in the corner. And there are some, makes you think of beer pong in college. So yeah, the glorious beer cups. So yeah, first impressions are pretty good. We're at a 65 line score. Definitely some room to improve that. I would be very interested, and there are times like this I wish I were more of a developer and more of a consistent user of automation tools. But it would be nice to have an after install script that would hit some of the concerns raised by the 65 Linus score, and send you down a path to get those installed. This is likely possible with an Ansible script that could be, put out on GitHub. It would almost be nice if it could read the output of a Linus scan and then give you specific steps to take for locking things down, and or just giving you a guided install, and letting you pick from different options to get things installed with a base config that will, get you up above like an 80 or an 85 Linus score, which, would make a lot of people more comfortable, I would say. Now, again, what is the actual number of desktop Linux users running a tool like Linus to find their security score? Probably pretty low. However, I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I didn't continue to mention the tool, at least as a way to get a baseline starting point and, make people more aware of what's out there and how they can better secure their system. That would be my initial thoughts and observations using TuxedoOS. I am going to continue to test this over the next week or so, and will likely give an update after that period is up, and probably during a live stream, you'll get an update on this. So, yeah, if anybody is interested in Tuxedo Computers, you can find them at TuxedoComputers.com. Again, they are based out of Europe, so whether or not it's something that you want to consider if you're here in the States, that's up to you. I do acknowledge that I've got viewers from all over the world, and where you are, this might be more of an option for you than what System 76 currently would be. I do know from previous public interviews that System 76 is working on some sort of distribution center for Europe, which would make them more of a competitor to Tuxedo in that market. So, I will say from this picture, that's a pretty bland PC case. Again, if you're in Europe, this seems like a pretty decent deal for getting a Linux computer without having to reinstall over top of Windows or beside Windows. So, on that note, this has been a look at TuxedoOS version 1. This is the beginning of the availability for non-Tuxedo branded computers. I will say it runs in a VM. I do not have the guest agent installed yet, so we could install that here. And that may improve the way this runs just a little bit. For the sake of time, I'm not going to do that at this point. All right, and that has been our look at TuxedoOS version 1. This is the initial availability for non-Tuxedo branded computers. I hope that you've got something out of this and it makes you a little bit more informed on what is out there. Head down to the comment section if you want to see more of TuxedoOS, or if you have a specific question that I might be able to answer about TuxedoOS, specifically running on non-Tuxedo computers. And on that note, I'm going to call this a wrap, and thank you all for watching. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day, everybody.